Hey, welcome to One Earth Live. Thanks for tuning in to this content, this interview here. Would like to give a warm welcome to everyone who's checking out the content and tuned into all the amazing live music and conversations that have been happening over these 2 days. I'm lucky to be here with Maya Chipana, an impassioned activist and member of the Earth Guardians Youth Council. I'd like to give you a warm welcome to the platform as well, and thanks for sharing some of your time and energy with us. Yeah, I'd like to start off by getting to know you a little bit. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, how you are.
Yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction. My name is Maya Chipana, and I'm here in Brooklyn, New York. Currently occupy Lenape territory. This is where I was born and raised, so in a lot of ways, it's a home for me. But I'm originally from South America. My mother is from Argentina. And my father is from Bolivia. He's Quechua from the Altiplano, the Andes of Bolivia. And yeah, I'm 24 years young. I'm really just very happy to be here today and sharing and meeting you. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you tuning in and taking the time. I'd love to hear a little bit of how you got involved with Earth Guardians and how you find yourself, doing the work that you're doing and what you're involved in at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I got involved with Earth Guardians. Basically, I just saw that they had opened their youth council, and I had been following their work for some time, and just wanted, in a lot of ways, I wanted to be more involved in environmental justice work. Also, I feel like that's very closely tied and connected to indigenous justice work. So Earth Guardians for me was my way of getting more closely involved with environmental justice. I have a background, just from birth, because I'm native to native rights and community work, but I really felt like I wanted to do more active work with protecting Mother Earth. Aside from, praying and ceremony, and in my own lifestyle, just adapting and living a more ecological lifestyle, I wanted to really get involved with like an organized group of youth that were standing up and speaking up for Mother Earth.
Mm. Yeah, it's a beautiful opportunity to be part of a community of people who are so committed and dedicated to realizing a change that creates a more viable and livable future for us to thrive in collectively. I think I've been had the privilege of working alongside Earth Guardians for many years, and it's such a beautiful family and community there, and so I'm really glad that you found your way there. And yeah, it brings a lot of joy to me to hear that there's amazing young people like yourself finding an avenue to engage with this important work through Earth Guardians, and I think that's really critical. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you've been experiencing during these last few months and how you've been adapting the way that you work and engage with these initiatives and passions and inspirations of yours through this time of isolation and lockdowns.
Yeah, no, that's such a good question. And, I just want to start with saying, like, I really extend like my heart and prayers to like all of the families and everyone that's been affected, that their health has been affected by the pandemic. There's been people in my community who have had it, and unfortunately, one person in our community who transitioned and to the spirit world because of the virus. Me personally, I'm so grateful and blessed that my immediate family is safe and healthy, and my household is safe and healthy. I'm quarantined, like a lot of us. I've been in my house for like almost 7 weeks now, I think. And for me, this time has been, to be honest, it's been good. I feel really grateful. I I've just been home. I have a 3-year-old little brother, so I've been spending a lot of time with him. Um, and it's been a really, you know, life-changing experience, to say the least. It's been a time for me, of reflection, of prayer, of creative outlet, of gardening, and a lot of organizing, which I think a lot of people maybe have different experiences. I mean, we all have different experiences, but I actually have had a lot of, like, I feel constructive, like, initiatives and productive initiatives going on, and also just really spending time doing artwork. And I do jewelry. I'm a jewelry designer and artist, so I've been like making jewelry, beading, and sorry, no, um, and sorry, and doing like feather work and just a lot of things with my hand. And like I said, gardening. So really, like literally putting in those seeds. Yeah.
Mm. It's so important to stay connected with our, creative inspirations and pursuits. I think at this time as well, because it's so easy to be overwhelmed by the situation and want to run away, but it's also such a pertinent opportunity for us to dive deeper into the things that we're exploring. Um, I guess something I'd love to explore in this conversation is where you've been placing your focus during this pandemic. What are the things you've been paying attention to and keeping track of as this is occurring? And what are the things you've been noticing most prominently? I know there's so many different ways that we can look at what's happening, and so just wanting to understand the perspective that you're taking with regards to this situation that's occurring.
I've been paying so much attention to myself, to my mind, to my body, to my being. I've had a lot of time to reflect and just think about like my life up until this point, and just like I was talking about this the other day, like I think I've really become like a really good friend to myself. Like I actually really enjoy my company, and I really like myself, and not like in a egotistical like way, but like I think in a really healthy way where I can like be humble and like criticize myself, but not criticize, but like just like reflect and want to be better and like realize things by myself, but also just like enjoy myself. And then at the same time, something I've been really paying attention to, like I think it's like really, really, really important to talk about, is like where we get our food. So like food sovereignty and holding on to seeds for me has been like the main lesson of this quarantine. Aside from just like realizing I'm here, like I'm alive, I'm here, but like it's like wow, like I think seed preservation and seed exchanges and organic gardening is like more important than ever. Like I think a lot of people, I mean, it was always important, and I think a lot of people were like already doing that work. Um, but I think now with the pandemic and just like food insecurity and people that live in food deserts, which we live in here, and a lot of people are just realizing that like you really should be planting your own food, and of course that's like not so feasible and not so like easy for a lot of people, especially like where I live in New York City, which is like one of the biggest cities in the world. But I think it's really important, even if like what I'm doing here, like planting in little like macetas, like in little pots, and collecting seeds. That's one of the things that I've been doing here with two other really good sisters. We started like a seed exchange program, and we started this like 2 weeks, not even after the lockdown began, our lockdown. We just like got on the phone and we're like, we need to like create a seed bank. And it was the kind of like a seed that was already in all of our like heads, but really I think the pandemic just like made that like so much more like clearer, that we needed to do that. So yeah, we've been doing that.
Mm. That sounds like amazing work, and I love hearing those stories of, ideas that have been catalyzed by this situation, basically highlighting the need for things more strongly than before. Perhaps, like you mentioned, food sovereignty, I think is such a critical area that people are really uh, turning their attention to in these times when it's threatened in their communities. Um, but I want to take it back to what you said before that, where you said that you've been becoming a good friend to yourself. And I think that that is something that a lot of people are struggling with at the moment. A lot of people are having a lot more time to sit with themselves and reflect on, where they're at and how they are in relationship with themselves. And I know that that's challenging for a lot of people. So wondering, what are some of the ways that you became a good friend to yourself? How did you go about that?
I think, I mean, to be really like sincere and like clear about it, I think it's like after coming out of like a few toxic, abusive relationships, and I don't mean like a few relationships, like romantic relationships. I mean like romantic friendships, family relations, like all of that, um, and an over accumulation of years, not just like they all happen in 1 year, like. But I think around like maybe a year ago, I would say a year ago, I really just like no mas, like no more. It was like a few years of like cutting off some things, changing some things. But I think like about a year ago, if I want to put a time frame to it, like it's when I really like detached myself and from everything that didn't like serve me, that was toxic. And it was a lot harder than it sounds. I think I probably had a harder time than most people because I'm a very forgiving person. So I would like often just forgive people. Um, and you can still forgive someone, but not, stay in contact with them too. But I think like I'm bringing this up because I think that was like one of the most fundamental parts of like really getting to like myself. And during that process of letting go of, like I said, just like cutting this all off and being like no mas, was when I really like spent a lot of time in silence. And for me, I was literally just this morning reading something that my own grandma wrote about silence. It was really inspiring to me. I can't believe my grandma wrote it. I didn't even know that she like, yeah. But she was talking about silence and like the beauty and like the really like constructive things about silence. I can't remember exactly what she said, but it's not important. It's just like I personally also feel like spending time in silence for me has been really like healing. I try to refrain from using that word because I feel like it's like one of those words that just like buzzwords that's like used all the time, but it's definitely healing. And I think like I would spend a lot of time just in nature, not just like silent in the middle of New York City, but like in nature at my uncle's house, at my grandparents' house, in the desert, in the forest, by waterfalls, and just hearing like sound of water or sound of leaves. And then at the same time I'm like being with other people. Like I remember during this time of like me really just like liking me and like vibing with me, I would go like every weekend. I would go away from New York City after like working. I used to be a bike messenger for almost a year, so I'd be like biking through this like concrete jungle. It was crazy time in my life. It was not that long ago. And then like on the weekends would not want to take any shifts because I knew it was my time to like go to spend time with my uncle, who's Mapuche from the south. And he's taught me a lot. And I think one of those things, and he's taught me a lot by not telling me a lot. You know what I mean? Like he's one of those like, I guess what they say about like wise is like wise people are like don't speak much. It's kind of like that, because it's like we would just um be like in prayer together, but we wouldn't necessarily say like this is a time for prayer, but we both knew that we were praying for each other, for our community, for the world. And like we didn't really have to say much. I mean, some things were said, it wasn't like dead silent, but it was like definitely a lot of moments of just like looking out. And then of course we had our ceremonies, like actual ceremonies,
Mm.
which helped me tremendously, like the sweat lodge. And yeah, just being with the elements, I guess. I think that's sufficient enough to say being with the elements for me has been like the most healing. And knowing that they're like my brother, like that rock is like my sister, my brother, like my relation, you know, and that tree is my relation too. So it's like okay, like my problems are not that important, you know, like they're important in the way that they're like they matter and I matter and my feelings are validated, but it doesn't matter to the point where I have to feel anxious or insecure or like mad or angry or frustrated about it. Like I think, like I mentioned before, I'm a really forgiving person, so I think it came to me like somewhat like naturally to just like let it go. I think forgiving ourselves though is like the hardest part, and that's where I like had personal struggle with.
Mm,
But once I like understand that like, you know, if trees are cut down, they're just gonna continue to grow anyway, then that's like kind of how we can be too, because we're like made out of the same stuff, you know?
mm. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to summarize what you were saying. I think that speaks to the resiliency that we have within our spirit to, weather challenges and face things that require us to tap into courage that's deep down inside. And I think that this kind of, global pandemic that we're experiencing now is one of those situations where we're being called to, you know, pull on that courage that we have within us and pull on that resiliency that we have within our spirit to be able to face the challenges that we have in front of us. I think, um, you know, I'd like to ask that during this time, what are some of the things you've seen that have brought you hope about, humanity's trajectory moving forward post COVID and after lockdowns? What are some of the things you've been seeing that have inspired or brought hope to you?
Yeah, for me, what's brought hope to me, and it's this same thing has brought hope to me in previous situations. So it's like just goes to show that this light, this energy is so powerful and like undefeatable. But like it's like when I see like, you know, brown and black people like really show up for each other. You know, like they were like creating mutual aid for each other. We're emotionally there for each other. You know, we are like talking and remembering our ancestors. And I just want to say, like, also, someone shared with me recently that, like, the home, like, traditionally the home was made out of like adobe or clay or like other sort of natural materials. And in a way, it's like a womb too. So, like, the fact that we have to stay in our homes, I know this isn't directly answering the question, but I think it's kind of relevant too. It's kind of like we're like going back into the womb too, because even though nowadays houses are made from like, you know, like whatever brick or concrete, or it's still like that main, like, you know, that main womb. It's like where like we sleep, where we eat, where we like go shower and clean ourselves. So the fact that we have to like go back in there, it's like a way of recharging, you know. I mean, houses are for that, you know, they're for sheltering and for recharging and for eating. So yeah, so I think that we're all in our houses, and we're all, I think, if we allow it, we're recharging, we're resting, which is very much needed, rest. And we're hopefully cooking really yummy organic foods and checking up on our elders and our family members and our community members. And you know, I think also like I had mentioned that like actual community mutual aid that's happening, that is for me what's given me the most hope. And it's always been that way, you know what I mean? Like it's not like at least in, I know you're not in United States, but like in the United States we were sent like $1,200 checks, and it's like that's never been the way to help us. We don't need stimulus checks. Like for sure, yeah, we'll use that, like okay, like I'm not saying I'm boycotting that, but it's like the real help and like what who really shows up for us is us, you know. So that's always been like a hope for us. It's, and I say it's been repeated because I remember like during Standing Rock or during like many different other movements, Peabody coal mining, which was like in the 80s in the Southwest in New Mexico and Arizona. It was like the community, Native community, Black community, like showing up and speaking up for each other. And that's just, I just named two, but it's really like so many, like hundreds. So it's just one of those times where it's like, yeah, no one else is gonna help us get our groceries or like get that essential stuff that we need, but each other. And it's interesting because the essential workers are like for the most part, like brown and black people. And it's interesting because what's essential is not like what is told to us as important positions or like high earning positions or high ranking positions. It's the working class people. And I think that's become really, really apparent in this pandemic. But it's always been that way. It's just, it's been told to us otherwise until now where we actually see it for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the way this crisis has really um, required us to step up in the way that we show up for ourselves and our community. I think where specifically with this pandemic, we're in a situation where our individual actions, directly impact the health of us and our families and our communities. And I think that it's interesting seeing how that modeling that hopefully we can move forward out of this situation with that cognizance and that awareness and that consideration of the people around us and realizing how our behavior impacts them. I
Yeah.
think I'd love to explore a little bit of this idea that we can't return to the normal that we were existing in previously. As you and I are well aware, the trajectory that we've been on for such a long time really doesn't lead to a viable future for life and for human life to thrive on this planet. And I think that uh, you know looking at that and realizing that this is a moment of pause where we can take a stock of where we're at and assess the systems by which we are operating. Um, what do you think we can do collectively to return to a way of life that is more aligned, more integral, and more connected?
Um, yeah, I think like it's like there's like so many parts I answer, but I think that number one, like the first before any of the other parts, is we were talking about before, which is like just being really real with yourself and being like your right your own ride or die. Like like you have to be there, you have to show up for yourself. And once you do that, you're gonna realize so many things that like I can't even begin. But I think one of the things that's like I think is really fundamental to revolutionary change is you're going to realize that you want to put like really good things in your body and in your mind and in your spirit. So in your body, that's like good food. That's like healthy food. You're not going to want to eat like high sugar content or like greasy, like GMO nasty food. Like you're going to want to like really treat your body right and exercise and all these things. And I do have to say that a lot of the unhealthy eating habits is like I'm not even sure whether to say a lot. I think it's just all is directly related to settler colonialism. So I think that's like super real. Like I think if we're eating unhealthy, it's not just us to blame. It's the system and it's colonialism that has like forced these like dietary habits onto us. And I do want to mention that like diabetes is a super real, and it's the statistics are crazy high for on reservations and just in general, like even in South America in native populations. And that's because of colonialism, and food deserts. And so yeah, so it's if we find ourselves eating bad, like it's not like that we should beat ourselves up on it. That's not what I want to say either, but it's just like resisting back to colonialism and what we put in our bodies and how we eat. That's a big way that we can resist back if we're interested in doing that. and and then when we put in our spirits, it's like good thoughts, meditation, offerings. I think like an offering is like for me been really helpful because it's like as a human being, as a two-legged, I find myself constantly using Mother Earth's resources when I get in the car, just everything, like everything I do, everything we do pretty much is like we benefit and we use fossil fuels way more than I think we even realize. And so I think like offering back, whether that's like planting seeds or giving tobacco back, or if I need to use something like I needed to like to clear up like an area for a yard. So after I did that, like I felt so bad. Me and my sister felt so bad. We like planted like 4 tree seeds because we felt bad we had to like kind of clear up an area. But anyway, it's just like you can offer in so many ways. Offering your moon, offering, yeah, I can, the list is there. Like, and so I think that's one way that we can like be more in harmony with Mother Earth. So we give and yet we take. So I think that's gonna help us out a lot. And I think once we like, I don't want to keep on going because it's just so long, but I think you like I'll get the idea. Like once we like in essence like just become more harmony and more like balance with ourselves, then we will be really able to work collectively with each other, establish food sovereignty, establish native sovereignty. Like I think all of these things, their work, I'm not going to say it's just going to be handed to us if we like go and meditate. It's not like that, but I think that's like that's like the inevitably that's like the next step. It's like once you do that, you're going to slide right into that. So a lot of us are already there, and now we're being faced with like the other super real work that it is to create food sovereignty movements, and it's a lot of work, native sovereignty movements. But I think for the people that are not there, and it's a lot of people that are not there, it's because of colonialism and how like effective colonialism was in like trying to get rid of our traditions. Then like a lot of those people, once they start like liking themselves and doing good things for themselves, they'll be like with us, like organizing and like making like good stuff happen, you know. Sorry, that was a long answer, but I think it was
No,
like a
I think you
packed
covered a lot of really beautiful points there, and I think the the approach moving forward is going to be complex and multifaceted, and I think what you
question.
speak to is really critical at the core of it, which is transforming and cultivating good relationships with ourselves. Um, I 100% agree that we can't redesign the systems by which we exist unless we address the systems within ourselves or our own, you know, our own relationship with ourselves. And so I think you painted a really beautiful picture of the way that doing that work within ourselves will translate and, proliferate down the line and affect the systems that we exist by. You mentioned food sovereignty and indigenous sovereignty and mutual respect and kindness to one another. I guess following that line a little, what are some of the things you hope to see in the future? How do what are the things that you hope to see present moving forward from this?
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned the word just now, and I was talking about it last night a lot too with the youth council. I think I would love to see, no, I think I would love to see more kindness in the world. Um, it's kindness is a sort of word that's like when we're talking about like, okay, what do we need, or what is like what should we work on? I feel like kindness is a word that normally wouldn't be like on that list because some people want like feasible, whatever that means, like solutions or like strategies. But the more I'm thinking about like what we actually need and what I would like to see, I think kindness is so simple and so powerful, and it's actually what's really most needed right now, because I feel like with kindness, you think more with your heart instead of your brain, and that's, I think, really necessary for us to live more healthy, ecological, respectful, just happier lifestyles. Kindness does a lot for your body too, like for your mind and your body. Like once you like carry this sort of lighter energy, I think you're just like generally um a more like I don't know whether you say productive, because we don't all have to be productive all the time, but in a way, yeah, like productive person, like for yourself too, like whatever you want to do and whatever you have your heart set on and your mind set on. I think if you're kind with yourself and you're kind with others and you love and you forgive, then like you will get to wherever you want to be. Like, believe me, you will, in some sort of way, whether it's the way you think it's going to be or not, like you will. So yeah, I think whatever we really want, we really got to think about what that is and refine that and tune that into like an actual like 1 to 2 sentence thing, or you know what, whatever, however long you want it. But for me, I like shorter because it's like I just that's the way I like things, like short and concise. But like then you'll get there. You just gotta find. You just gotta look at it. Like go look. If there's a fork in the road, just like go straight. You know, that's what I've like tried to practice in my life.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really beautifully put. I think kindness is something that is really needed, now as much and more than ever. And I think that we're all being called to connect to that kindness within ourselves and cultivate that kindness so that we can, you know, care for ourselves, care for one another, and steward the planet in a way that is
Exactly.
nurturing and caring. Um, yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, and I think that that's a beautiful way to wrap this up. I'd love to, open it up for you to share anything else you feel like sharing, or if there's any sort of thoughts, considerations that you have before we close this out.
Um, Not necessarily. I just want to just express gratitude for everyone around the world doing the important work, and gratitude for Mother Earth and for Father Sky too, for always providing for us everything that we need. And my hope is that we're able to give back to them too, and to all our relations, and to act kinder to them.
Hmm. I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up the conversation. I really appreciate you lending us your time and your thoughts and your wisdom. I I think that what you bring to the table is such an important piece of the conversation around this time for humanity and this emergence that we're all stepping into the frightening and but exciting unknown. And yeah, I really appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who is tuning in. I hope you've been enjoying the One Earth Live, you know, uh, selection of content and creators and musicians and thought leaders that we have gathered here. And yeah, appreciate you all. Big thanks to you, Maya.
Thank you. Thank you so much.